Today I'm going to show you how to make a coffee chiffon cake bread loaf. The cake and bread combo is very popular in my hometown. Let's get started. We'll start with making the bread. First, add all the ingredients, except the butter, into a mixing bowl. I'm just using cold milk. Cold or room temperature milk is fine. Attach the dough hook attachment and make this on low, on number 1, until everything is incorporated. Once everything is mixed well, turn this on medium-high speed and mix for about 5 minutes. I'm using speed number 6. The maximum speed of my mixer is 10. We want to mix it until the dough is formed into a ball, and we can stretch the dough without breaking. The texture is still a little rough at this point. Now with the mixer running on low, add in the softened butter. Once all butter is added and is mixed with the dough, turn the speed back to medium-high and mix for another 6 to 8 minutes. At the beginning, the dough is going to look very wet, then fall apart again and look very rough. Don't worry about it. Keep mixing it and it will become smooth again. We want to mix it until we can stretch the dough to form a thin film without breaking. If your dough is extremely sticky, then it's probably too wet. If so, you can add a little bit of flour and mix it a little bit more. If after 3 to 4 minutes in, your dough is still falling apart and not sticking together yet, then it's probably too dry. You can add a little bit of milk and keep mixing. Either way, you want to add very little amount of flour or milk and keep checking. Don't overdo it. This is good. Now transfer this to the counter. The mixer already did all the hard work. We just want to give it a few quick kneads to smooth out everything and form it into a smooth ball. Lightly grease a bowl. Put this into the bowl and let it proof for about an hour until it's double in size. If you have a thermometer, you can test the temperature of your dough now. The ideal temperature is between 77 to 86 degrees. Cover the bowl and let it proof in a warm place. I like to mark how big the dough is now on the plastic so I can tell if it's proof enough, because a lot of time I forgot how big it was before it starts. Poke a few holes for air to circulate. I like to proof my dough in the oven, placing a bowl of hot water in there to create a moist and warm environment. I will also leave a little crack so the oven door won't close all the way. We want the air to be moist but not too wet. Now back to the dough temperature I mentioned before. If the temperature is too low, it will take longer to proof. Likewise, if the temperature is too high, then the proofing time will be shorter. Short proofing time is not necessarily a good thing because if the dough rises too much before it gets baked, it will collapse. If after you finish mixing and your dough temperature is over 86 degrees, then cover it and put it in the fridge for 10 minutes, then proof. This is why we don't start with warm milk in the beginning, because we are mixing the dough for a long time. If we start this with warm milk, by the time it's done mixing, the dough temperature will be too high. Never proof your dough for less than 30 minutes or over 1.5 hours. When it's done proofing, you can test it by poking a finger into it. If it doesn't collapse or spring back and hold a shape, then it means it's good. Transfer the dough onto the counter. Flatten it slightly to get rid of the big air bubbles. Pinch it around to form a ball again, then cover it and let it rest for about 15 minutes. Meanwhile, we can get the pan ready. Cut out parchment paper to fit the pan. My pan is a non-stick pan. If you are not using a non-stick pan, then grease the pan before lining the parchment paper on it. Now back to our dough. Rolling out with a rolling pin. Doing this also helps to remove bubbles trapped in the dough. Press the side around and pop all the little bubbles you may see. Flip this over so the smoother part will be in the bottom. The width should be slightly shorter than the pan's length. Now roll this up. Seal the edge. Put this into the pan and let it proof again for about 45 minutes to an hour until it's about 1.5 times the original size. I'm using the same proofing method again, but this time I'll put this in the microwave because I will have to preheat the oven later. Check the dough after about 40 minutes. If it's already close to the final size we want, then we can start to work on the cake. First, heat the milk in the microwave for 25 seconds, then add the coffee powder and mix well. Mix the oil and flour. First, combining the oil and flour is simple and won't develop gluten. You can stir it any way you want, and you don't have to sift the flour neither. Now add the coffee milk mixture and egg yolks. Stir until all well combined. At this time, we can preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Now let's whip the egg whites. Add cream of tartar to the egg whites and beat on high speed. Cream of tartar can stabilize the meringue. If you don't have it, you can add a small teaspoon of lemon juice or vinegar instead. When you see big bubbles forming, add a third of the sugar. Continue to beat on high speed. When the foam becomes finer and silkier, you can add another third of the sugar. Continue to beat on high speed. The foam will continue to get silkier, and you will start to see some texture lines or trails. At this point, you can add the remaining sugar and beat on medium-high speed. Continue beating until you see some stiff peaks. After lifting the whisk, the meringue is stable and firm, and the peak will not drip. Scoop about 1/3 of the egg whites to the batter and fold it in gently. This is to lighten the batter initially and prepare it for the rest of the egg whites. Once it's mixed well, change to a spatula and pour it into the egg whites. Continue to fold gently until it's all combined. Repeat this movement until the batter is homogeneous. Don't overdo it. You can use any of my chiffon cake recipes for this. I chose coffee flavor cake because I like the rich aromatic notes of the coffee combined with the subtle sweetness of the bread. Now pour the cake batter into the pan. Give it a little shake and tap it once to get rid of the air bubbles. Bake this in the lower rack. After about 10 minutes, when the surface layer of the cake batter is formed, use a very sharp knife to make a slit in the middle. This will give you a controlled crack on the loaf. Try to accomplish this as quickly as you can. When done, tap it on the table once to get rid of the hot air in there, pull it out from the pan and let it cool off on the wire rack. And this is now completed. The coffee cake is very light and airy, and the bread is extremely soft. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for watching.